Let's go gambling! Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it.
Hello, with many players reaching level 60 and getting their characters and weapons to 90, I assume many are curious on what the most optimal endgame build is right now. 44111, 43311, or the latter with a 4-cost attack echo. Hey, who knows, maybe the 4-piece echo actually pulled an upset. Looking at the most recent poll I did, although the sample size is fairly small, I think it is still fairly representative of how the community feels on this topic. You can see that 43311 with double damage bonuses is still on top, with 43311 and the attack 4 cost being at the bottom, and then 44101 and 43311 with the attack and electro being close by. There aren't too many videos out there right now explaining the comparison between the two at level 90, so I thought I'd make this. There is a really good video by Maggie going over this, which I'll link in the description, and is probably more reliable than my test or math. Though theory is generally accurate, I'm pretty sure you'd also want to see it in game with your own two eyes. As such, I'll split this video into two parts. First, I'll do a test comparison of the different scenarios I mentioned in game, and after, I'll do my math going over the different investment levels and how it could impact performance. Thankfully, I have the right pieces to demonstrate today as they are all double crit. This test will not be fully accurate as there will be some slight differences in crit and other substats, but they are as close as possible that I can get at least. So just keep that in mind. I'll quickly put the build on screen for a bit so you can see what we're dealing with. So here's 44111. This is 43311 with double damage bonus. This will be 43311 with 1 damage bonus and 1 attack. And lastly, the 4-cost attack echo. I will be adding the average crit rate from the other sets to make it more fair, and that being 7.5 crit rate. And that should be all for preparation. Okay, but first, some disclaimers. 1. The more crit you have, the better it performs, which means that my test with a crit weapon will influence the results. If you do use an attack weapon, 43311 will likely be the better option for you. 2. The higher base attack you have, the better attack percent will perform, albeit it is very slight. And lastly, the more saturated a stat is, the less it gains per additional value of said stat. So with that out the way, for the test, we'll just focus on the initial hit of Deliberation as each build has the same damage bonus value from substats, making the test more fair. I will use 3 Kachar skills to get the 5-piece bonus, after which I will use Deliberation. Starting with the 43311 double electro build, we get a 26,119 crit. With the 43311 with an attack and an electro 3 cost, we get a 25,636 crit. Next, we have the 44111, which gets a 20,478 crit. Lastly, we got the 43311 attack 4 cost, which gets a 26,580 crit. Kinda crazy, huh? What's the attack echo doing up there? Well, regardless, it is then followed by the 433 with electro 3 costs, and then the 433 with an attack and electro, and finally the 44111. While the 44111 looks pretty bad on paper, this isn't the whole picture. So let's add non-crits in using my chart. While looking at the chart with the results being mostly the same, it is still pretty funny seeing the attack 4 cost being up there. Regardless, I don't want you to misinterpret the chart, so I'll give you my rundown and things to note. 1. It seems that attack 4 cost plus damage 3 bonus is the way to go if you have a high base attack. 2. Everything is actually really close and depend on what substats the echoes have. 3. While 43311 performs better in theory, in actual combat, the results can greatly vary due to you having lower crit, which means if you get lucky, you can have much higher damage output, but if you don't, your damage is kinda cooked. Lastly, while our 44111 is lower, it isn't by much, but you are getting much more consistency while running it, so use whichever suits you best or whichever one comes first. So, characters with nukes like Jinxie or Cheng Li Yao in the future, 44111 might be the way to go. Again, it is super important to remember that your base attack, substats, and supports such as Verina or Yinlin buffs can turn this table around. I can't test it myself, but I'm pretty sure if we did have a Verina and Yinlin, I do believe 44111 would actually win or be next to attack 4 cost. Also, understand I did not use the 4-star echoes for this damage bonus, which would actually push 4411 higher if I did. For the next part, I will give Verina an rejuvenating set and try the same thing again. I won't be testing Moonlit, but the premise will still be the same. Starting with the 43311 with double electro, we get a 34,635 crit. With 43311 with an attack and electro 3 cost, we get a 33,861 crit. Next, we got a 44111, which gets a 27,478 crit. Lastly, we got the 43311 attack 4 cost, which gets a 34,726 crit. It's still pretty surprising to see the attack percent echo still doing so well. But remember that the echo does have slightly higher crit and attack percent substats. And just like last time, none of it really matters till we see the non-crit damage too. So here's the final chart. As expected, the attack 4 cost echoes wins by a bit again. 44111 begins to catch up again due to its lower attack being made up by Verina. The 43311 with mixed 3 costs is now slightly worse due to the increase in attack, which makes it drop in value compared to the 43311 with double damage bonuses. Again, I'm pretty sure if we did add a Yanlin here, 44111 would actually win due to getting the damage bonus from somewhere to make up for its lack of damage bonus in the build itself. Now it's time for my sheet math. But first, I need to establish some guidelines and disclaimers. This part's gonna be pretty boring, but it's important nonetheless, but feel free to skip this part to the results. But if you're questioning the methodology, I'll probably explain it here. So this will be a raw scenario test for different investment levels. As we already saw in the previous examples, external buffs can change the outcome. As such, I won't include that just to make it more generalizable. I'll use this quote-unquote level 90 Jinshi with a crit rate weapon, but it does not have its effect. Also, no inherent skills like Radiant Surge will be applied. Take this chart with a grain of salt because many factors can influence the final result such as base attack, substats, and self buffs. External factors like teammate buffs and RNG will also change the performance in the actual game. The 4 builds I will be testing will again be 44111, 43311 with 2 damage bonuses, and lastly the 43311 with an attack 4 cost. I will be testing the build at 4 theoretical investment levels with different substats and no damage bonus from using the echo. The first will be low investment with literally 0 substats. Either A, you're saving your tuners, or B, you got HP percent, defense percent, and energy regen. And if that's so, I'm sorry and this one's for you. The next will be a immediate investment with 3 crit damage rolls, 2 crit rate rolls, and 2 attack percent rolls. Then the high investment roll with all double crit, but only 2 attack percent rolls and 1 damage percent roll. Lastly, if you are just that lucky or dedicated, 5 crit rate crit damage rolls with 5 attack percent rolls and 5 damage bonus rolls. These damage bonus rolls are accurate as I know it only accounts for 1 type of damage. So we're just gonna assume that 100% of our damage came from our skill just to see how it fares. And finally, the results. Just kidding, I'm gonna talk about a damage formula. Yeah, this part's pretty important too, just so you can understand how I'm calculating everything. The base ability damage is the ability attribute value, aka the attack stat for most characters, times the multiplier value or motion value, which is found in the skill's description. For our Jinxi's skill nuke, I do believe the value to be 2,575, rounded by a little bit. There are the defense and res multipliers, but they aren't important for us here. And the final part is the damage bonuses, which can be calculated using the formula seen on screen. But to include the non-crit hits, I'll use this formula multiplying the crit hit times the crit chance, plus the non-crit hit times the non-crit chance. So the final formula will be looking something like this. Okay, so doing the math for each scenario takes way too long as I previously learned, so I just made my own calculator. I'll put that in the description and my work too. But, finally we're at the results. Or if you skip to here, hello again. If there is a mistake, it most likely won't be because of the calculator, and it would be rather me totaling the stats wrong, but I'm pretty sure I did it right though. But putting that aside, I will put the entire thing on the screen, or the results at least, and then go over it. I honestly didn't expect this, and it's pretty funny to see. At the lower investment levels, this definitely makes sense as crit doesn't perform too well there, and there is low amounts of crit. With both double electro and 44111 utilizing crit, it makes sense why there is such a big gap. there isn't too much to know at every other investment level, to be honest, besides the fact that 44111 gets better the more you invest into it. Again, the difference isn't that huge, but it's pretty important to a lot of people nonetheless, so yeah. Given all the information provided throughout the video, I hope you can make your own judgment calls, but I will put a TLDR for those who need it. 1. Attack forecasts are really good. 2. 44111 gets better at higher investment and is not that good at low investment. It also trades off damage but gets consistency in return. 3. Everything is also very dependent on the substats, weapon, buffs, and other factors. My personal TLDR is just to use what the gacha gods give you. If they give you godly 3 3Ps, then you should be aiming for the 4-3-3-1-1 setup, either going attack, crit rate, or crit damage. But if the game gives you godly 4 pieces, I guess you know what you must do. But if the gods bless you with fuck all, my condolences. And that's that. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. And also, thanks for helping me hit 900 freaking subs. We're just at like 500 a week ago and like 200 a bit before that. And maybe this video even pushes me past the 100 mark. But besides that, hopefully you get some good echoes and peace.